Hi, welcome to the Kensington podcast, Coffee with the Kensington. My name is Brenda Moynihan. I'm the Director of Marketing and Outreach at the Kensington Assisted Living Residence. I'm your host, and every month we will discuss all things related to seniors, their families, and caregivers. Today's topic is all about keeping it fresh when you can't visit your mom or dad or can only visit intermittently. And I'd like to introduce my guest today, Susie Sarkeesian. Susie is the Director of Family Services at the Kensington, and she's also a life coach. Welcome, Susie.
Thank you.
So I want to get right into it. So let's talk about someone who may live far away, someone who lives in Michigan, and their mom lives in New York, and they may have been used to either talking to them on a daily basis or a weekly basis, but now they don't know what to say, so that the old, hi mom, how are you doing, really doesn't cut it anymore. What are some things that people can do to keep it fresh?
So you're talking about it in terms of being a phone call, right?
Right, let's start with that, yeah.
So I happen to have lived this because my parents are down in North Carolina, and what's interesting that kind of happened is each person in my family, as my father was ailing, kind of took on a different role. So where I felt my role was to call my mom, who was the caregiver, and I would check with her. And I just wanted to know, did you get dressed today? Mm-hmm. What are you having for lunch? What are you doing for dinner? I had another brother who was far away who would call my dad and just go back to your go-to thing. So he and my dad always talked sports. Mm-hmm. So he would call and say, how about the Cincinnati Reds? Mm-hmm. Didn't matter if it was baseball season or not. He would still bring up the same things. One thing, I say take a few minutes and think about what are ways that you have always connected with your mom, so, or your dad, or your aunt, or your grandma, whoever it is. So let's say grandma always made a really good beef stew, mm-hmm. right? So why not call her up one day to say, hey, grandma, weather's starting to get cold and I would love to make your beef stew. Can you start telling me about that recipe? Mm-hmm. And even if you're not going to make it, doesn't even matter. But to make her feel a sense of purpose and let her share a memory or share something that she's sharing with you. I recently was running a support group, and one of our family members said that she had noticed her mom had started to go flat in their conversations, and they were kind of running out of things to say. And she came up with an idea. She said, hey, Mom, I have joined a book club. Her mother loves to read. Mm-hmm. She said, I've joined a book club recently, and I don't have time to read this book. If I send it to you, will you read it idea. And then help discuss it with me? Great idea. So she gave her mom a sense of purpose, and her mom absolutely took the book, read it, and then helped teach her about the book. Mm. I have another family member that the mom used to speak French, and the daughter and the grandson, the daughter said, hey, Mom, can you start teaching my son French when we have our Zoom calls? So I say it's about knowing the person, knowing what makes them feel useful, knowing what helps them have a sense of purpose. You don't want to set people up to fail. Right. If they don't still speak French, you don't want to ask for that. But it's good to go back into the long-term stuff, find the things that used to work, and see if you can unearth them. Okay. And what about, visiting someone, visiting them not just with Zoom? What about tools? So, you're talking about maybe reminiscing, and what about bringing photos and things like that? Right. So anything concrete is always a wonderful, if you're actually going to have a visit in person with someone, or it can be done virtually as well. Digging up photos is a wonderful conversation starter. And when you pull out a photo, get curious. Mm-hmm. Go, hey, Mom, who is that standing beside you at the wedding? And tell me about these outfits. Why? Just get curious, like wonder about things. Why was everyone standing like this in the picture? Where was Dad that day? So photos are a wonderful thing. That can be done virtually. That can be done in person also as well. Another thing that I've seen be really successful in visits is when people bake or bring some special food that means something to someone.
Okay.
So we have this one granddaughter who brings, I call them Caitlin's Big as Your Head cookies. And every time this family has a visit, the granddad leaves with these cookies that are as big as your head. And you can go into his room, and here's these cookies that carry on, and they help the visit linger. We have another resident, the family brings Polish babka every time. And those things are ways to connect and to have the visit last longer than it really does. And obviously things like that can be mailed. So I think food things can be a great way to...
Stew, cookies, you're making me hungry.
I know.
Now, what about visiting someone, whether it's virtually or in person, if they've got some dementia? So that you're not asking them, hi mom, do you remember, or things like that. What about that person?
Right. So a lot of family members, for lack of knowing what to say or do, tend to start a visit by saying, Mom, did you eat breakfast?
Right.
Oh, Mom, what did you have for breakfast? When the reality is, it's not important what they had for breakfast at this point. You know, if they're living somewhere where their needs are being met, most people with dementia they start off losing short-term memory. So they're not going to remember if they had breakfast. So by asking that question, you might be making them wrong, or they feel like, oh gosh, I don't remember. Did I eat it? Did I not eat it? Did I have pancakes? Did I have eggs? I encourage people, don't go to the short-term yes and no, right and wrong questions when you're visiting someone who has memory loss. Short-term memory goes first. So that's where you can go a little further back. So again, the photos from ages ago, that's a way to connect with someone. Or it could be sharing a memory that you had where you say, hey mom, see this pen? You gave me this pen when I finished high school, and I've always loved it, and it's meant so much to me, and it makes me smile when I wear this pen that you gave me. So with the memory loss, go past the immediate, go further back to see if that works.
What about talking about your grandkids, if you've got grandkids, you know, little Timmy did this, or a dog or a cat or something like that, just to give them information to make them smile? What about stuff like that?
I think it's important to know the person you're visiting and know what is, if that's going to confuse them because they're losing the connections to little Timmy. If that's only going to make them feel more lost, like read their face. If that makes them, depending how far along they are in their dementia, if that is upsetting to them, I wouldn't go down that road as much. But again, photos can be like, Mom, this is a picture of your grandson on the baseball team. He looks just like Dad did, didn't he? You know, you can bring it to the present. If they say, I don't remember that I have a grandson, let it go. That's fine.
Okay.
You know.
And what about additional tools? And folks, I wanted to tell you that Susie actually has written an article, and it talks a little bit more about what we're talking about today, how to keep it fresh. So please feel free to go to our website, www.thekensingtonwhiteplains.com, and you'll find some more information. But just want to talk about one more thing, tools. What are some other tools that people can use, if you can think of off the top of your head? Or are there any books out there, or cards maybe, perhaps?
Perhaps, but you know, the number one thing to bring to a visit, whether it's a virtual visit or an in-person visit or a telephone visit, is your own energy and attitude. So here we are in a pandemic, right? And there are nothing but barriers between being able to see someone, whether it's a mask or whether it's distance or whether it's travel restrictions or whether it's whatever things. There are many, many barriers. Your job is to bring in good, positive energy and be able to get over those barriers to still make connection. So when someone comes into a visit or a phone call or a Zoom session with the doom and gloom, that's what the person you just visited is left with. So I always say the number one thing you do is you shed all of that. You look past the mask, you look past all these things, and if you are light-beat and upbeat and lighthearted, that's what can remain afterwards. So I encourage people not to get too wrapped up in, Mom, this is terrible what's going on in the world, and Mom, this is so bad, and do you know how many people are dying? That is what would remain, right? With someone with cognitive impairment or not, when someone's only gotten a short window of time to see you. So the number one thing I say to bring is a really good attitude, and as hard as that can be, because we're all fighting a daily battle, right? So as hard as that can be, come in with a smile, leave with a smile. Even if the smile can't be seen because of a mask, that can make a difference in someone's day. Music is another wonderful, wonderful tool for unlocking memories, unlocking, it can just be, hey, Mom, I've got this song on my phone that you used to sing when I was a child, and let me just play it. And even if Mom, her eyebrows go up, that might be a little sign of recognition. So use your cell phone. Find songs that can create connection, because it's all about creating connection, right? So connection is, whether it's a virtual connection, a physical connection, a visual connection, an auditory connection, it's all about creating connection. And it just happens right now that we have more barriers for that. Right. But it's up to you as the person coming in to get past those barriers and still have that connection happen.
So folks, keeping it fresh, we're giving you a lot of different ideas, but I think the key here is to go in positive and leave your loved one positive.
And one last thing, I also think it's okay to take 30 seconds before the phone call, the Zoom call, the visit, the whatever, and have a little loose plan in your head. Just have a little bit of a loose plan. You could jot it down on the notes of your phone. I want to ask Mom about this recipe, and I want to make sure that she explains to me how she always kept the house warm when it was chilly outside, whatever it was. Like, have a little bit of a loose plan so that you have some fallback things in those lulls.
So folks, you heard it here at the Kensington. Coffee with the Kensington podcast. For more information about the Kensington, you can always go to our website. And remember, Susie will have her article there, www.thekensingtonwhiteplains.com. Thank you, Susie.
You're welcome.
And if you need to get in touch with us, 914-390-0080. Thanks, and we'll see you next month.